You walk every day. Maybe not a structured workout. Maybe just the parking lot, the grocery store, the hallway at work, the path you've taken 1,000 times around your neighborhood. But you move. You're on your feet. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you've told yourself that this counts, that this is enough, that your body is getting what it needs simply because you're not sitting still. And here's the part nobody tells you. Walking is genuinely one of the most powerful health habits available to the human body. The research on this is overwhelming and consistent. Regular walking reduces cardiovascular risk, supports blood sugar regulation, protects the brain, maintains muscle function, and extends healthy lifespan in ways that even expensive medications cannot replicate. But there is a side of walking that almost nobody talks about. Because it's not just whether you walk, it's how you walk. And certain habits, small, invisible, almost unconscious patterns that most people have carried for years, are quietly working against you, accelerating the very aging process you're trying to slow down, stressing joints that deserve protection, undermining posture that determines how your body feels and functions decades from now. By the end of this video, you will be able to see your own walking habits with completely new eyes. And what you discover might genuinely surprise you. Because some of the habits causing the most damage are the ones that feel the most normal. Let's start with number 1. The first bad habit: walking without intention. There is a version of walking that your body barely registers. A slow, shuffling, distracted movement from one place to another. Head down, pace inconsistent, effort minimal. You're technically walking, but your cardiovascular system is barely responding. Your muscles are doing the minimum required to move you forward. Your metabolism is barely engaged. Scientists call the intensity threshold for meaningful cardiovascular benefit a moderate pace, roughly the speed at which your breathing deepens slightly, where you could still hold a conversation, but you're aware that you're moving. Below that threshold, walking produces some benefit, but far less than most people assume. Here's what happens when walking becomes purely habitual and unconscious. Your body adapts, and it adapts downward. The muscles that were once challenged by movement begin to treat that movement as trivially easy. The cardiovascular system stops responding with any meaningful adaptation. And over years, particularly after 50, when muscle mass is already declining and metabolism is already slowing, this form of movement preservation masquerades as exercise while doing relatively little to protect the systems that most need protecting. Intentional walking means bringing awareness to your pace, your posture, your breath, and your effort. It doesn't mean suffering. It means choosing a speed that creates mild challenge, that makes your heart rate rise modestly, your breathing deepen, your muscles actually work. Even on a comfortable flat path, this choice makes an enormous physiological difference. The simple shift from wandering to walking with purpose, with a real pace, a real direction, a real commitment to that pace for a defined period of time, is the difference between movement that maintains you and movement that genuinely improves you. And after 50, that distinction is not minor. It determines whether your cardiovascular system strengthens or slowly weakens, whether your leg muscles maintain their power or continue their gradual decline, whether your metabolism is challenged or merely coasting. Walk with intention, every single time. The second bad habit: looking down at the ground. Watch people walk in any public space and you'll notice something striking. The majority of them are looking down. At their phones, at the pavement directly in front of their feet, at nothing in particular. Just downward, habitually, automatically. This is one of the most physically damaging habits in modern movement, and most people have no idea they're doing it. When your head drops forward and your gaze falls toward the ground, a chain reaction moves through your entire spine. Your neck flexes, your upper back rounds, your shoulders roll inward, your chest compresses. Your lower back compensates with an exaggerated curve, and the weight of your head, which is approximately 10 to 12 pounds in a neutral position, effectively doubles and triples in force on the cervical spine for every inch it moves forward. Over years of walking this way, the consequences accumulate quietly. The deep muscles of the upper back that are designed to hold your spine erect gradually lengthen and weaken from disuse. The muscles of the chest and front of the neck adaptively shorten. The result is what physical therapists call forward head posture, a condition now so common in adults over 50 that many people assume it's simply what aging looks like. It isn't. It's what decades of looking down looks like, and it creates a cascade of problems that extends far beyond appearance. Chronic neck pain, tension headaches, reduced lung capacity because the compressed chest cavity limits full diaphragmatic breathing, impaired balance because the vestibular and proprioceptive systems that control stability depend on head position, and accelerated spinal degeneration at the segments bearing the most abnormal load. The correction is deceptively simple. Lift your gaze to the horizon. Let your ears align over your shoulders. Feel the back of your neck lengthen gently. Your chin should be parallel to the ground, not tilted up, not pressed down. From this position, your entire spine naturally organizes itself more efficiently. Breathing deepens. Balance improves. The muscles of your back engage as they were designed to. It will feel unfamiliar at first if you've been walking differently for years. That unfamiliarity is information. It tells you exactly how far the pattern has drifted. But within days of conscious correction, the position begins to normalize. And the long-term consequences of that correction for your spine, your breathing, your balance, and your neurological health are significant. Look up. Walk tall. Your spine is not meant to carry the weight of a downward gaze for the rest of your life. The third bad habit: taking steps that are too long. This one feels counterintuitive. Bigger steps seem more athletic, more powerful, more efficient, but the biomechanics of walking tell a different story. And what they reveal is that overstriding is one of the most common sources of joint damage in adults who walk regularly. When you reach your foot far out in front of your body with each step, what biomechanists call a large anterior stride, your heel makes contact with the ground well ahead of your center of mass. That contact creates a braking force. Your forward momentum is partially arrested with every footfall. Your body has to work harder to recover that momentum, and the impact energy that should be smoothly absorbed by your muscles is instead transmitted upward through your heel, your ankle, your knee, and your hip. Over thousands of steps, and consider how many steps you take across a week, a month, a decade, this repeated braking impact accumulates. Knee cartilage, already thinning after 50 due to natural changes in collagen production and hormonal shifts, bears a disproportionate load. Hip joints absorb forces they were not designed to handle repeatedly. The lower back tightens and strains to compensate for inefficient mechanics. Many people who walk regularly and still experience knee pain, hip discomfort, or lower back soreness are not experiencing the inevitable consequences of aging. They are experiencing the consequences of overstriding, a mechanical error with a mechanical correction. Shorter, quicker steps allow your foot to land beneath or very close to your center of mass. The impact is absorbed primarily by your muscles rather than transmitted to your joints. Forward momentum flows naturally rather than being interrupted. And paradoxically, this smaller stride pattern is more energetically efficient. You cover the same distance with less effort and far less joint stress. The target is not tiny, shuffling steps. It's a natural, medium stride where your foot lands under your hip rather than far out in front of it. If you shorten your stride and increase your cadence, the number of steps per minute, slightly to compensate, you will actually walk faster, with less joint impact, and with significantly better mechanical efficiency. Your knees will notice the difference within days. The fourth bad habit: never changing your terrain. The flat, smooth, predictable surface. The same neighborhood loop. The same treadmill. The same perfectly level sidewalk walked in the same direction at the same time for years on end. There is something deeply comfortable about routine. But for your body, particularly the stabilizing muscles of your ankles, hips, and core, and the neurological systems that govern balance and spatial awareness, a life lived exclusively on flat, predictable terrain quietly creates a dangerous fragility. Your body adapts to the demands you place on it with remarkable precision. When those demands are minimal and unchanging, the adaptations are also minimal and unchanging. The small stabilizer muscles of the ankle that activate when you step on uneven ground gradually weaken from disuse. The proprioceptive nerves, the sensory receptors in your joints and muscles that tell your brain exactly where your body is in space, become less responsive when they're never genuinely challenged. And here is where this becomes medically serious. Falls are the leading cause of injury-related death in adults over 65. Not illness, not chronic disease, falls. And the underlying vulnerability that makes falls more likely is not simply that the ground is slippery or the lighting is poor. It is that the neuromuscular systems responsible for balance have quietly deteriorated over years of underuse. Walking on varied terrain, grass, gentle hills, gravel paths, packed dirt trails, is one of the most powerful and accessible ways to maintain the neuromuscular competence that protects you from falls. Every slight variation in surface activates stabilizer muscles that flat ground never engages. Every gentle incline challenges your hip extensors and calf muscles in ways that level walking cannot. Every irregular footfall sends rich proprioceptive signals to your brain, keeping those neural pathways sharp and responsive. This doesn't require hiking mountains or navigating challenging trails. A gentle walk through a park, off the paved path and onto the grass, provides neuromuscular variety that flat sidewalks simply cannot. Vary your terrain. Not dramatically, not dangerously, but consistently enough that your body is required to adapt, stabilize, and respond. Because the balance and coordination you maintain in your 50s and 60s is the foundation of the independence and mobility you will carry into your 70s and 80s. The fifth bad habit: holding your arms still. Watch a healthy, efficient walker and notice their arms. They swing naturally and rhythmically, opposite to the movement of their legs. Left arm forward as the right leg steps, right arm forward as the left leg steps. This reciprocal arm swing is not decoration. It is a fundamental part of human walking mechanics that serves multiple critical functions. Now watch what happens when people carry a phone in one hand, tuck their hands in their pockets, fold their arms across their chest, or simply let their arms hang motionless at their sides. The counterbalancing effect of arm swing disappears. The rotational forces generated by the movement of your legs, which naturally spiral through the pelvis and lower trunk, have no upper body counterbalance. Your core muscles, which normally work subtly and dynamically to manage this rotation, are either overloaded or bypassed entirely as the body finds compensation patterns. The result, over time, is reduced thoracic mobility. The upper spine becomes increasingly rigid and restricted in its rotation. Core muscle function diminishes because the walking pattern that normally activates it has been removed. Gait efficiency drops, requiring more energy to cover the same distance, and the natural, flowing coordination between upper and lower body that characterizes healthy human movement gradually fragments. Restricted upper spine rotation is also intimately connected to shoulder health, breathing mechanics, and even neck tension, because the thoracic spine and the structures surrounding it are deeply interconnected with all of these systems. Let your arms swing when you walk. Naturally, not exaggeratedly. Elbows bent at roughly 90 degrees. Hands relaxed, not clenched. The swing should feel effortless and rhythmic, a natural pendulum motion that coordinates fluidly with your stride. If this feels awkward or unfamiliar, it's a meaningful signal about how restricted your upper body movement has become, and gently restoring that movement through natural arm swing is a small daily investment in spinal mobility that pays dividends for years. The sixth bad habit: walking in the wrong footwear. The shoes on your feet are the only interface between your body and the ground. And the choices made in that interface, every single step you take, either support the complex mechanical chain of ankle, knee, hip, and spine, or quietly undermine it. Most people choose shoes based on appearance, comfort in the store, or brand familiarity. Very few choose them based on an understanding of what the foot actually needs during walking. Here is what research in biomechanics and podiatry consistently shows. Shoes with excessively thick, cushioned heels alter your natural gait pattern by encouraging heel striking, landing hard on the heel with each step, in a way that increases impact forces transmitted to the knee. The extra elevation of the heel also subtly shortens the calf muscles and Achilles tendon over time, contributing to plantar fasciitis, Achilles tendinopathy, and reduced ankle mobility. all of which are disproportionately common in adults over 50. Shoes with narrow toe boxes compress the toes into an unnatural configuration that gradually weakens the intrinsic muscles of the foot. These muscles, the small muscles that control the fine movements of the toes and support the foot's natural arch, are essential for balance, propulsion, and force distribution. When they're chronically compressed and weakened, the consequences ripple upward through every joint in the lower body. Worn-out shoes present a different problem. Most athletic and walking shoes lose a significant portion of their midsole cushioning and support long before the upper shows obvious wear. A shoe that looks fine on the outside may have completely collapsed structural support on the inside, and walking on it means walking on an unstable, asymmetrical surface that creates subtle but cumulative joint stress. For walking, look for shoes with a relatively wide toe box that allows your toes to spread naturally. A moderate heel height, not elevated, not completely flat for those accustomed to heel support, adequate but not excessive cushioning. And replace your walking shoes regularly. For most people who walk daily, every 6 to 8 months is a reasonable guide, regardless of appearance. Your feet are the foundation, and when the foundation is compromised, everything built on top of it bears the consequences. The 7th bad habit: walking without recovery. This final habit is the one that surprises people most, because it's not about doing something wrong during the walk itself. It's about what happens, or what fails to happen, after. Many people over 50 walk every day and then immediately return to prolonged sitting. They complete their 30-minute walk, feel satisfied with the effort, and spend the next 8 hours in a chair. And while the walk itself was genuinely beneficial, the body's response to that immediate and extended return to stillness partially undermines the metabolic and circulatory benefits the walk created. Research published in leading exercise science journals has shown that prolonged sitting after exercise, what scientists term sedentary recovery, blunts improvements in blood sugar regulation and cardiovascular markers that walking otherwise generates. The body needs intermittent movement throughout the day, not just a single daily dose followed by extended immobility. But there's another dimension to recovery that's even more overlooked. Muscles that are worked during walking, calves, hamstrings, hip flexors, glutes, need active recovery to maintain their length, their suppleness, and their readiness for the next session. Without simple post-walk stretching, these muscles adaptively shorten over time. Hip flexors tighten from the combination of walking mechanics and subsequent sitting, pulling the lower spine into an exaggerated anterior tilt. Hamstrings stiffen, contributing to lower back pain. Calves contract, limiting ankle mobility and disrupting the gait mechanics you've worked to improve. 5 minutes after your walk. That's all that's needed. A gentle calf stretch against a wall, a standing hip flexor stretch, a slow hamstring lengthening. These brief post-walk moments of recovery preserve the mechanical gains of the walk and prevent the compensatory patterns that accumulate when muscles are repeatedly worked without being restored. And throughout the rest of your day, particularly if your work or lifestyle involves long periods of sitting, brief interruptions matter. Standing for 2 minutes every hour. A short walk to the end of the hallway. A few gentle standing movements. These micro breaks maintain the circulatory and metabolic benefits of your morning walk across the entire day, rather than allowing them to dissipate within an hour of returning to your chair. Recovery is not weakness. It is the other half of the habit that makes the habit work. Let's pull all of this together, because the picture these 7 habits paint is an important one. Walking is not passive. It is not automatically beneficial simply because it's happening. The way you walk, your pace, your posture, your gaze, your stride, your arm movement, your footwear, and your recovery determines whether walking is genuinely protecting and strengthening your body, or quietly accelerating the very wear and decline you're trying to avoid. The encouraging truth is this: every single one of these habits is correctable. None of them requires equipment, expense, or dramatic lifestyle change. They require awareness, the kind of clear, specific awareness that most people simply haven't been given, because nobody explained these mechanisms clearly before. Your body at 50, at 60, at 70 is not fragile. It is remarkably adaptive. It responds to the demands you place on it with extraordinary loyalty. When you correct your gaze, it begins restoring your posture. When you shorten your stride, It reduces the load on your knees. When you vary your terrain, it begins rebuilding the neuromuscular competence that protects your balance. When you stretch after your walk, it maintains the flexibility that keeps movement pain-free. These are not dramatic interventions. They are small corrections to a daily habit you're already doing. Adjustments that compound quietly and powerfully over months and years into a body that moves with more ease, more stability, more strength, and more resilience than it did before. There's one more layer to this story that we haven't touched yet, and it connects everything we've discussed to something deeper about how the body ages and how movement either accelerates or resists that process. Because walking, done correctly and consistently, does something at the cellular level that most people have never been told about. Something involving telomeres, mitochondria, and the biological mechanisms that actually determine how quickly your cells age. Not just how you feel on the outside, but what's happening at the deepest levels of your physiology. That's the next conversation, and it's one that may change the way you think about movement for the rest of your life. Because the science of how the right kind of walking protects you at the cellular level is more remarkable than most people know, and you deserve to understand it.